people's comments, but our appointed officials on the planning commission as well as elected officials on the village council. I believe, and I'll look for feedback from the planning commission, but ultimately, whoever the collector initially is of these comments, I think part of the process needs to be a commitment that all the comments are available for your evaluation, the council's evaluation. Ultimately, there would be a time other citizens should have the ability to see what fellow citizens inputted on the plan. So we might have to not delay this public process at all or this tonight, but I will commit to the public and the planning commission, ultimately the council, that as we move forward, we're committed to any comment. Those will the planning commission, council, and ultimately the public will be aware of those comments. So I'll be sitting down for any questions, but I'll turn it over to Kyle and his hard work on this.
Thank you to Mr. Mallory. So, as Mr. Mallory has indicated, we started this process about a year ago, a little over that. We had 3 public open houses held throughout the village in November and December of last year. And then subsequent to that, council authorized additional public involvement and engagement throughout the winter months as well, where we collected between the open houses, we estimated well over 100 people, between the subsequent survey we did, more of an abbreviated one-pager, well over 100 responses in that way too. So I don't have the firm numbers. We can definitely get that for you here. It's been some time since we looked at those, but I would estimate well over 200 responses in some capacity were received for input to draft the plan before you. As we discussed in the past, the master plan is your policy. It's your guiding document for a municipality. While there is components in here for transportation, utilities, open space, existing land uses, future land uses, it is a visionary document. Further details to, how green space should be planned for, what residential should look like, on a engineering level are handled outside of this document, more in your zoning ordinance as well. So this is a big picture 15-20 year document, and then from there the actual details are such as engineering drawings are handled subsequently outside of this. So tonight before you, our request, because we've done this for about a year now, we've worked with the Planning Commission, we solicited that feedback, we've drafted the plan. We're asking now, we're at the step 2 under the State Act to send this out for public comment. It's a 63-day public comment period required under the State Planning and Enabling Act. So from there, the Planning Commission is asked to recommend to Village Council that council at their next meeting or when it's next on their agenda distributes the plan to the public to be enacted on to begin that 63-day comment period. At that point, citizens can comment via to the Village Hall or however else that is determined to be on the plan itself. So between that date when the council enacts that to the public comment, the document does not change. Comments are collected and collated and then presented back to Planning Commission after the 63 days. And then typically what will happen is we'll compile those and say, these are the comments we received. Planning Commission holds a public hearing. Additionally, on top of the 63-day public comment, here's any additional insight or concerns from residents and stakeholders. And then from there, makes any modifications that they deem necessary. So there's still ample time for the public comment. This next stage is on the draft document itself. So that is the recommendation and request before the Planning Commission tonight, is to make a positive finding to Village Council that they set this out for the 63-day public comment period.
Any questions for Mr. Mucho? Kyle, I have one question. After the 63-day period, what does that look like? What happens after that?
So after that, we come back, Mr. Chair, with any and all comments that have been received, whether it be from utility providers, whether it be from adjoining municipalities, from the public at large, and then we have a public hearing before the Planning Commission and say, we offer it up to anyone within the room who'd like to, and then also present you any written comments or written feedback that has been received during that window period. And at that time, it can be, and I'll defer to staff on how they want to present that, but then that is presented to the planning commission saying these are the comments that were received during this period. After that, if depending on the size or scope of comments, then the planning commission will decide, do you want to accept those comments or do you want to make a recommendation to move forward with the plan as is? I know one community, for example, in a 63-day period, we had a small paragraph for public transit, and the transit authority requested that just some verbiage be changed. That was the only public comment we received. So that'll go to a public hearing next week in front of a planning commission. They can accept it or not in that regard.
What are the ways that the public can comment? What are the means that they submit those comments?
Typically, how that would happen, Commissioner Rashi, is they can do it in writing because it will need to then come back to the planning commission in that regard. But again, I'm going to work with and defer to staff on how that is collected. But generally speaking here throughout the municipalities, they are collected via writing. And then if a resident or stakeholder does want to present or provide public comment, they would do so at the public hearing that the planning commission would hold after the 63 days. So written comment between the 63 days, verbal comment at a public hearing, scheduled to be determined.
Yeah, I have the same question. I'm not sure that answered the question. How will, outside of writing, like when you say writing, I think of like someone penning a letter and then putting it in the mail and sending it to Jim. How will residents physically be able to do that?
That'll be listed out in the posting, and they'll have the ability to send to Village Hall via writing. We can look at, my only pause is because of moving to a new building. I just had a meeting on the whole infrastructure movement of servers and that, but certainly could look at establishing an independent email to make it more convenient. And that email would be a village email. So then we would print those emails off. Also, we'd store the emails, archive them, they'd be foilable. I'm 99% certain we can set that up, but I'd report back. There might be a delay where we have to delay the 63 days starting just because of the server transfer between buildings, but hopefully they can figure that out. But that's another option as well to receive communication. Communication reference a 63-day in the ability in wanting to receive input in communication. I mean, the draft master plan will immediately be put up on the website. Announcements will be made through all of our social media as well as our email contact list, which is now over 700 people. We're the only municipality in South Kalamazoo County that has invested in the ability to text with residents. So a notice will be sent out via that text as well, which is now over 300 people have signed up for that in the last 60 days. So we're moving there, as well as the next quarterly billing goes out. It would be within the 63-day period, but we can put a note in the hard copy that there's X number of days written. The reality of this is after it goes to the council and prove and I'll call it the clock starts to tick, we're going to be longer than 63 days because I anticipate this not coming back to the Planning Commission till February. And we're going to still receive, we would keep that email open until, probably noon, the day of whatever that meeting is, that we come back. So those are some commitments we make.
Yeah, I think it's a failure if you only receive one comment, right? I think like making it easier to access the ability to make a comment, I think gets you ahead of, any questions by the community members, right? The idea is to be as engaged as possible and have as many people probably look at it as possible.
So another community that we're doing a public comment period currently on within Kalamazoo County, I'm aware that we've received 3 public comment throughout this 63 days. One was from another municipality's planning commission, just saying it looks good. Another one was from some verbiage change, just some, they went through it and just said, hey, this might be just a grammatical change. And so I've been aware of 3 that we've received, and that was a municipality that has 20,000 people.
Yeah, I agree where we should be as a community if someone were to ask or make a comment after the fact, that we can certainly point in a multitude of ways that it was first communicated out, we're seeking input. It's my experience, we're always gonna have someone say they didn't find out. But we certainly can cover the basis of our social media, which is nearing 7,000 people, our website, our texting, our email system, and our public meetings. And again, we're the only municipality in South Kalamazoo County that streams live and archives that I'm aware of, through YouTube and saves it. So it could be others, but we'll certainly keep getting the word out. And I agree with I think what I've heard from the board is to provide that opportunity.
Jim, or Kyle, I think in the last council meeting, we were given instructions that if we had any comments, the commission, that we would forward them to Jim. Will that continue? So that will continue then, okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're still available to do that or not.
And on the off chance that I or McKenna receives comments, they will immediately be forwarded to village staff. We're not playing anything like that. Mr. Mallory and Mr. Wines will be copied on any communications I receive as it pertains to this. We just happen to be, kind of the front runners helping get this out there, at least to other municipalities. And Mr. Mallory and Mr. Wines will be copied on all communications, so they're very well versed in what is being sent out and what is received.
Great. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll call for a motion for this agenda item.
One last thing, Chair Schenkel, just so the commission and public's aware, not the 63-day comment process, but it will be an agenda item at the the December Plan Commission meeting, the January Plan Commission meeting, and ultimately the February Commission meeting, where I think it is flight patterned out to come to an additional formal vote. So it will be a listed agenda item soliciting in-person public comments and that, so.
Member Cox, I have some motion to approve the public input for the master plan.
All right, motion on the floor from Cox. Do we have support for that motion?
Holmes, I second.
Support from Holmes. Any further discussion on this motion? Assuming roll call vote. Thank you.
Chairman Schenkel,
Yes.
Mr. DeBall,
Yes.
Mr. Rotella,
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Bailey. Ms. Blankenhorn.
Yes.
Cox is yes. Mr. Yashi.
Yes.
Mr. Bishop.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 8, Planning Commission discussions. Mr. Mallory, you're up.
I was looking for my all-important Mallory copy of the agenda there. I left it up here. So yes, Planning Commission discussion. First, the last meeting and as well as the council meeting, we made some just preliminary announcements here in the last couple months of some exciting things coming to the village and will be processed through in some cases, just the planning commission, in some cases, the planning commission, and ultimately the village council for approval. And just wanted to be aware, I'm anticipating a pretty full agenda for our December planning commission with approval, and to talk about a couple of those. And this is your opportunity to ask any questions you want or provide input or thoughts, is to start with the homestead at Centennial development. That's the neighborhood off 22nd Street that's proposed between the current Trillium neighborhood and Centennial neighborhood. We have been working, and I want to assure the planning commission and public that our engineers and McKenna and the village attorney and myself have been involved, as well as Christian, in probably half a dozen formal meetings, working out some different items of that. I have provided the planning commission with some of those internal communications between our engineering firm as well as McKenna. I have provided those to the developer, and I'm happy to report on all of the engineers' recommendations. The developer has moved to accept those recommendations. I just received this afternoon those applications, the application fee with the updated documents of Pry Newhoff's and McKenna's input. So I'm anticipating that will come in front of the planning commission. It is an item that is planning commission approval. The area is zoned R3 and currently meets that zoning ordinance. But I'm going to pause there. This is your opportunity in your meeting. If you have questions, thoughts, comments that we can discuss.
Jim, I just wanted to add a comment for the commission members and regarding this development. And that is, I shared some comments regarding thoughts, concerns that I had about housing in the community and at the last commission meeting in October. And one of the interesting things was that as I since have been researching and just looking into things, and that is dense housing developments like what we have in Vicksburg on the west side of the town. It's actually fairly common across the United States. It's a trend right now. And the reason it is because housing's unaffordable. You have challenges with people being able to buy houses. And so what developers are doing is building smaller houses, sometimes with lesser amenities, on smaller plots. And so what we have actually, I dare say, is we're kind of seeing some things that we may not see in other parts of Kalamazoo County or Michigan. But what really is happening in Vicksburg is something, again, that is not uncommon that you see in other places around the United States. So I just wanted to share that with the commission.
Yeah, I'll second, just in, traveling throughout the country through our consulting business, workforce housing is a huge issue. And as far as building a region, not just the city of Vicksburg and village of Vicksburg, but having affordable housing and good workforce housing helps to bring more jobs to the region as a whole, which eventually, also helps the village of Vicksburg. So I think addressing, affordable workforce housing is a key to building the region, so.
This development, was this part of another phase when they originally started that over there?
No.
This was not another phase, it was just something that was added.
I'm unaware if it decades ago was discussed, but this requires, purchase of that land by the developer, and so it was not part of the original documentation for the Centennial plat with common grounds and a common clubhouse and that. I do know that part. If it was, I have heard, but I haven't confirmed this through any government document, that originally when the Trillium neighborhood was designed, it talked about a next phase to the Trillium neighborhood, but that never materialized.
when looking at that side of town, and realizing that was 126 houses, is give
It'll
or
be
take?
somewhere between 115 and 120 predictably, maybe 121.
Okay,
There's been that's part of the work behind the scenes, is making sure we had the right storm calculations and retention ponds. And I know some of those original numbers those lots got reduced because of that.
okay. Is there any other land that has been zoned developmental at this point in time? I'm not speculating what can happen with any of the other land over there. I'm just curious, any land right now that is zoned R3 over there that, again, so there might be another phase beyond this? I'm just trying to get a sense of
No,
where we're at
that,
right now.
in the municipal jurisdiction of Vicksburg, that would be the only undeveloped R3 currently zoned. There are, between 37 and 40 acres that are within the municipal jurisdiction, on VW heading out of town where the Roger Huey's plat is. So it's just to the west of that plat. There's another 37 to 40 acres that currently is being farmed and is zoned as farm agricultural, but it is, or V, yeah, I'm sorry. On the south side of the road. So that it's not zoned R3, but it is within the municipal jurisdiction that could be developed in the future for housing, residential.
Do they have a base price for this development of these homes?
If they do, and working with them on other projects, I'm sure they do, but that hasn't been shared in our discussion, nor have we asked about that.
Jim, just kind of coming up on my thoughts of previous comments. With this number of housing being added, will it stress our utilities at all?
No, it's all computed into the growth. It was computed into the growth of the pipe that we increased. Rick would be, Trustee Holmes would be aware of. We invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to update a pipe, as well as that whole flow down to the Washington Street lift station, ultimately through downtown, as well as it's tied into the calculations. It's tied into the calculations of the current infrastructure, but our Sprinkle Road project, it's within those calculations as well. So
This is probably more DDA focused, but I'm wondering if we have given any thought to the economic impact of 120 new houses.
well, it certainly, it goes to Nick's comments on a regional basis. It's 122 more opportunities for families to economically spend their hard-earned money in downtown Vicksburg. I look at it, and it's kind of that, it's very beneficial for me, because I get all the behind the scenes contact working with the developers and comments that come. And we've all been in the area a long time. What we're discussing tonight, 122 homes come into the village. We have commercial development on lots that have been vacant for 4 decades. We have industrial manufacturing to the tune of, and the details will come out in future meetings, substantial career jobs tied to this industrial manufacturing. So I take all of that, and I'll circle back around specifically to your question, Mr. Schenkel, but what the village of Vicksburg is doing is being recognized by developers, by people in the private sector that want to invest their money in communities that are progressive and look into the future. And that's a theme in all of these conversations that have been going on for a year and a half. This isn't like they called up one day and just said, let's build 120 some homes. So behind the scenes, in working, and there's multiple deals, if you will, that never get, some don't get around first base, some make it to second or third base, but they never come up because of whatever reason. So it, to me, validates what we're doing in Vicksburg because it's drawing this attention. Short answer, absolutely, it's going to have a positive impact. Calculating all of those numbers, I can tell you anecdotally without mathematic science that I like behind it. I look at the Berg days. We know estimate wise where our traffic came in and out of town for those days. Watching 22nd Street, watching Portage Road and Sprinkle to see impact, and especially with, we know how many houses currently are on 22nd Street and trying to bring them into downtown. And we saw the increase as we went through that summer. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And it's you can probably tell, I could probably go on if you want me to a couple more hours on it, but I'll limit it right now. I'll save it for Southwest Michigan first when I visit them.
Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions for staff on this? This is not an action item, correct?
No,
It's just
none of these are,
discussion.
but I am anticipating,
Yeah,
we're fully prepped to deliver the presentation at the December 11th meeting with our recommendation.
great, thank you.
Hey, Jim, just out of curiosity, looking at Centennial, in comparison to the rest of the village, how much time do officers spend over there? What's the crime look like in Centennial in comparison to the rest of the village?
The crime incidents, I'm unaware. I can report back specific, but nothing's been brought to my attention by Chief Sanderson that it's out of any type of norm. There's been a couple higher profile incidents, but that could happen anywhere, especially in the type of crimes those were. It's a communication effort. We've worked with the leadership in the neighborhoods. I think Kyle's aware of this, on predominantly lock your vehicles at home if they're left in the driveway and shut your garage doors. Will prevent quite a bit of the crime we experience in Vicksburg, of people walking through just looking for an open door, what they can take from inside an unlocked car or what's inside an open garage door. So,
Just out of curiosity, thank you.
yeah.
All right, if there are no further comments, we can move to 8B, the Big B update.
Yeah, in the same vein, it's been very encouraging working with the developer, have listened to internal input on the proposal as well as from our village attorney in McKenna and Prine Newhoff. The developer has really worked with us to update its site plan proposal. We have some further communication that'll take place yet this week. And I in a position that I truly feel that will present this on December 11th with a site plan that staff in our team can stand shoulder to shoulder with the developer and articulate that support would be warranted, and excited for a new community partner. And like I said, in a corner, in a gateway of our community that has been vacant for quite some time now. So be happy again to answer any type of questions.
This is Member Wertella. Either you, Jim, or Kyle, the layout that they have for the traffic going through, did they put a turning vehicle template on there, like a passenger car turning template? I see some faint lines on here. But
Yeah, it went to their internal team because we were looking at, our original conversation had 2 entry exit points they were proposing, and we did not feel, due to left-hand turns and its proximity to Prairie Street, that it would be better with one. So their internal team has kind of turned the building to expand what they call the amount of cars that could be in a queue or the lineup waiting to order and ultimately receive. So that was done by their staff, and then we look at it internally. There's some discussion points on what was provided to the Planning Commission tonight that'll be part of the communication that they're aware of already. The current plan doesn't have an ADA parking spot. We're gonna say that it shall have one. But we're looking as well, we have 5 spots, only one ADA one that would be on the north side of Prairie Street that currently people use to go into Main Street. And we're looking at now making an additional ADA parking spot also in that section, because that's actually closer to a door of Main Street than the back parking lot. So those are part of the conversations that are taking place between us and the Bigby developer. I can assure you that we'll be advising them that they shall have one, but we're also gonna look at us providing additional capacity in that area of town as well. We think the need's there. So part of our conversation will also be on outside placemaking and providing them the opportunity to put in for DDA grant where public benefit, and we would look at what type of investment they'd be willing to make and what type of match we could come up with to incentivize that public green space that has matching furniture that we have currently downtown in that. So
My concern was, probably half the vehicles around here are pickups. I've got a Silverado, so if I pull in there with my Silverado, I'll be able to manipulate all of the curves and get around and not be running over
I'll
the
certainly
curb.
bring up that question. But
I guess the other thing, if I could please, is they're hoping to get pedestrians access here, correct? To get coffee?
that's our goal is to make the walk up accessible and inviting. The hangout area, as we've explained to them, not only that people that are in the bump out in front of China One and the Hideaway, as they look down, they would just, the sight visual line will be encouraging them to walk to that end of downtown, see what's there, and vice versa. If someone's enjoying a coffee in this, and we look at it as a shared thing. So there might be one of the other businesses within the Main Street Pub complex that provides seating that they might go across the street and enjoy as well, get the sight line back the other way. The next thing you know, they're having a beer at the Hideaway, a sandwich at Jasper's, getting a massage, going to a chiropractor, maybe getting pottery lessons, and ending up in Oswald Park with Mrs. Mallory and I having a beer at 7 at night. So that's the whole goal of this village. Watch a football game out on the streets too next.
Jim, that was my question, was the seating and that turnaround. I'm assuming if it's even in the drawing that they've considered it to be safe to have that space there.
Yeah, they're responsible for that, and that'll be part of the final review prior to coming in front. We'll make sure that McKenna and Prine Newhoff and have checked off that the radius is in that work. They're going to receive tomorrow just a hand, or it's professionally done, but a sketch on potentially how we see that seating and green space. And I think they've invited us to provide that. And like I said, it's been very cordial and extremely professional, the communication with the developer and their desire to be part of our community.
My other question is, that lot is a dirt lot right now. And so, I see the plan that'll be concrete, asphalt, whatever, and then a building, but there's still a lot of space there that is not going to be built out. What is that going to look like?
Well, that's part of our conversation, and where we're going to try to help, like I said, facilitate some grant opportunities to make it be green space with public, if you will, placemaking seating. And they certainly have indicated their willingness to listen to that and see that. So all indications that I've got from them, their biggest priority is make sure that they have, per the Big B standards, X amount of spots in that lineup, and that doesn't come back out onto Richardson Street. Second to that, I think they're extremely, I know by action, they're extremely willing to listen to our ideas and have incorporated some already. And I look forward to positive meeting here later this week on this topic.
Yeah, Jim, and looking at the design, it's nice to see that, one, that there's a single entryway off of Richardson and not Prairie. I think that and it's far enough back where it addresses the concern I think you've heard from some commission members about the walkway and the schools and kids. So to the point you made, obviously they're listening and the adjustments are being made. Love the idea of possible green space there. You could see maybe in the back something done there to the side, which would be nice. I'm just curious, from what you're hearing, when do you think that they're looking at breaking ground and opening?
Oh, I think they would certainly break down ground in the calendar year 2024. I think as soon as they got approval, we'll start, as most of these developers are, lining up. Big B's is a little bit different, as they have corporate approved contractors that build, but that's part of the positive thing as well. When it was originally started discussion, it was more a modular type concept, but they've gone to a stick built and with a little bit extra square footage, and like I said, have been good to work for. But I would anticipate it being opened in 2024's calendar year.
Okay.
Jim, was there a reason for a fence around the backside of the perimeter of that?
There's screening requirements that we have, especially separating commercial and residential. So that would all be contained within our recommendations of what would be acceptable screening. And on the, not only that's on the north side, but it is also on the west side. The property line is the building wall of the business just to the west. However, between that building and the north line is the backyard of a residential. So that's why that screening's indicated.
Great. If there are no further comments or questions on this update, we can move to 8C.
Yeah, and this really is now starting to get in the heart of an endeavor that's going to probably go for the next 18 months. We've talked internally, setting priorities for 2024, and I'm talking the calendar year and going into 2025. We'll certainly keep doing our best to highlight Vicksburg in a positive manner, bringing businesses, manufacturing, and residential. But we have to look at the ordinances, the policies here in the village of what needs to be updated. Quite a few, a number of our ordinances date back many, many decades. And as you look at, we can take asphalt and parking as an example. What was the thought process and design in the 70s doesn't necessarily match in all cases the practicality in the 2020s and people's desire for things to be walkable. A great example of that is any large shopping complex mall, of how often is all of that asphalt actually needed. And in part of this, we have started to internally look and prioritize what ordinances and what flight pattern they should be in. Some will only need to go to the village council. An example of that would be utility ordinances. So there'll be a discussion at the first meeting in December on sewer and water ordinances. Others, such as we're given a heads up here on a text amendment reference our industrial zoning district review. So we not only have our current Legion Park, if, I think the planning commission is aware, the village engaged, and we have now completed the purchase of 10 additional acres that are within the village limits that are currently zoned industrial. It ties to another 117 acres that are within the village limits. So when you start to look out 10, 20, 30 years, you can envision that area being developed into a second industrial park. And we started to look at neighboring communities here in Southwest Michigan at their restrictions, or more, in our case, we're the most restrictive in an industrial setting, and does that apply in 2020s? We, as a staff, feel that there's room that we can do a text amendment, and that will be formally presented in December. But I think it's good to maybe have Kyle just take a minute or two, explain that process. We'll send documents out well before the next planning commission meeting. But basically, you're looking at, you have X amount of acres to put an industrial site. You don't need as much setbacks to accomplish what other communities are accomplishing. But I'll not, and we'll be certainly available to answer questions, but I just kind of wanted to highlight this is coming, and he'll give a couple minutes what it's about, so.
As Mr. Mallory has indicated, in December, our intent is to provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission to begin the formal process of amending the current schedule of regulations of the zoning ordinance as it pertains to the industrial districts. We have conducted a little bit of analysis throughout the Kalamazoo County area and within the village itself for our zoning districts that are industrial. And then what we do from there is provide kind of an overview of where things are, and then what the surrounding communities have, and then what our vision is. Will it tie to like a master plan potentially? So that's kind of how this happens. A text amendment there's a few ways that it can happen. One, it can be through a petition of a resident, stakeholder, business member, so forth, and they'll submit an application to the community and say, hey, I would like to amend this provision in the ordinance from description A to description B in order to allow me to do C. Others can be, as Mr. Mallory indicated, more staff-initiated, where we go through, we find that there are some inconsistencies, there are areas that need to be amended to help bring about the vision or bring about the master plan itself, or any other guiding documents that a municipality may have. So this would be more of a staff-initiated style amendment instead of it going through an application process. The overall amendment would apply to all three industrial districts, the I-1, I-2, and I-3. It's not just for a specific site, it would be the whole ordinance itself as we move forward. And then, Mr. Chair, you have this in your packet. Okay, if I reference it, I don't want to reference items that are not there. So then what we also did looking at this, so we go through, we provided a background of what the district is, what the regulations are. We talk about what permitted uses are in each of those districts. And then primarily where our analysis came in from was, how do we better align the village to reflect what other communities permit to retain and then expand our industrial potential within the village. So in this document, we looked at the city of Portage, Kalamazoo Township, the city of Kalamazoo, Comstock Township, Ostermo, and Texas, as it pertains just to industrial. And what we looked at is their schedule of regulations, which offers the setback requirements, it offers the maximum building height, maximum lot coverage, and then minimum lot coverage as well. So that's why in this analysis there are community comparisons for your review. That way it doesn't look like we're coming out of left field with a recommendation. You can see what others have in that regard.
If I can, Kyle, on that, look at it there's nothing behind the scenes going on. we want to align this village in a competitive playing field with other communities. So if a business manufacturing that meets these industrial zonings looks at our antiquated ordinances, they're more restrictive than communities within a few miles. So that's where we asked McKenna, hey, we're not looking at anything radical but let's get in alignment with these other neighboring communities, because in the future, we predict only more are going to want to come to the village of Vicksburg. And let's put ourselves now in a position that we take that off the table for a future developer, that it, and we'll come in with justified reasons why we feel some of these text amendments to the specifics occur. But in a general sense, high altitude, we want to put this village in the best competitive position it can against other municipalities to recruit this industrial, which equals career jobs.
I just have a comment on that. It's well documented that this village has antiquated language, text, ordinances. We went through a recodification process. I myself have poured through our documentation and have brought forward recommendations to staff. Personally, this is something, as Mr. Mallory has explained, it's really a competitive factor at this point. It's modernizing our language so that it's relevant to today's world, not to the 70s and maybe later. So I think this is a great opportunity to move forward with.
Yeah, we'll start in December with the industrial text amendments, but you're going to see through the governmental process, potentially formal sign ordinances, definitely parking, to bring that into alignment with today's society and patterns. You'll see short-term rentals coming up, and the other item within all of these will be an updated fee structure that is in alignment with the cost of 2020, and some of our fees, were set 25 years ago. You don't know what a fee, the last time a neighborhood was developed, it was set 10 years before that. So all of a sudden, it's to get this in. And then once we get that baseline, we'll do an internal policy recommendation to the council that those fees, and they'll all be listed, are reviewed through the yearly budget process, and anything that needs to be recommended to be raised or lowered would be done through the budget process. So at least we have something in place that this is reviewed every year before we get behind so much again.
So this one is just for the industrial zoning.
Yeah, and I brought
district?
that up because we'll formally present our recommendations at the December 11th Planning Commission meeting.
So it will be in addition to the industrial zoning district. The agenda that I have in front of me has the text amendment, industrial zoning district review.
Correct. That it's all encompassing. It'll
Okay.
just be industrial zoning. So there's the three components. Was it I-1, 2, and 3?
Okay. But not residential?
No,
Okay.
no, it will just be specific to industrial lots.
Good. Thank you for that clarification.
Jim and Kyle, I'm just curious, this conversation has me thinking about something, and I'm going to say up front, no need to go into this in depth considering the time, but we're operating under the assumption that spending money and creating an industrial park's a good thing. I'm just curious, does the data show that? Does the data show community our size where we have a limited manufacturing base that, and I'm not saying it isn't, I'm just curious, to what degree does the data support that?
The data does support it, and as we move through, especially in the development of an industrial park, but it would be the amount, of course, it's dependent, I guess, on the industry that you're putting in the industrial park. But you're looking at jobs that are living wage career jobs that equal additional residents in housing, because we know the majority of people want to live X miles away from where they work. They have a capacity limit there. So if you can put those jobs in your community, you're going to predict that they're going to be within X amount of a radius from that employment. I think it goes as well to comments that were made earlier, and it's in some areas a sensitive topic. So I'm not talking expanding village current boundaries at all. Let me make it emphatically clear. We are not talking about that. But as a municipality, we have to understand regionally our impact and our contribution, and conversely, why we will support. We recently, within the past few months, sent a letter of support for the city of Portage to be awarded a grant for their Portage Road corridor south of Center Street. And people asked, not at the public meeting, but asked me on the street, why would we ever do that? But you start to look at the impact of if that corridor expands and is more welcoming with more businesses, and absolutely has benefit to the city of Portage, but it has huge benefit to our residents as well. And conversely, the opposite way for the residents in Portage that come in and enjoy our downtown, enjoy the bird days of summer and those things. Specific to the industrial park, I'm very, very confident that even in a community our size, the uniqueness of the village of Vicksburg, and the credit to the forefathers that put the infrastructure in place. Because an industrial complex or an industrial park predictably is not going to go in a place without the infrastructure to handle it. So as well, it was asked earlier, the entire build out of the village, predictably will take place in the next 30 to 40 years. The infrastructure investments we're making today have all those calculations in place. So yeah, great question, but we feel, and the forefathers that zoned that area industrial, I think we're ahead of their time. Forefathers and mothers, I guess I should, because I don't know who did it, but whoever did do it deserves the credit. So.
All right, if there are no further comments or questions on this one, we will move on to the last item under 8, which is 402 West Prairie Street concept plan provide.
Yes, in that, the Kathleen Wills explained it earlier. I have provided you with copies of what she was holding up. And this is just initial, like we did a couple months ago with Bigby's or that kind of, hey, this is coming. There'll be a lot of work between staff and our team and the developers team to get this to the point. Again, our goal is always to be shoulder to shoulder in front of that it's good for the village and meets our zoning and regulations. So it is proceeding forward, and we'll ensure that we're all behind it as we move forward as well.
One question I'd like clarified. This is on a commercially zoned, not industrial zoned.
Correct. I wasn't, as we allow people to make whatever 4 minutes of comments they want, but it's not zoned industrial and is not going to, in any plans to change industrial. It's a C2 designation, and anything in that building would have to fit the C2. Predictably, it'd be a change of use, so it would come through the Planning Commission for a site plan review if it were not to be a gym. So.
Is there any comment from staff on kind of the initial side of things, or I mean, do we just wait
There'll
till-
be
presentation?
Be a few things that we certainly have to work out and get a better understanding on. First and foremost, again, on the footprint of the proposed development is stormwater calculations, as well as we have ordinance that it's of what type of surface will go down there between phase one and phase two. Looking at the project, the developer would like us to look at getting that section of phase one where the gym machines are able to be opened up and continue and have a type of base coat, maybe of pressed millings or something down for parking capacity. But again, all that's going to have engineers involved and work out. That, as I stand right now, is probably the most significant item we'll be working out.
Just a comment, just kind of like the same thing for Bigby is this is a gateway into the village. And what it is currently is just, yeah, well, I won't repeat what Mr. DeWalt just said, but it certainly looks exciting on paper. So I'm glad someone is taking initiative to revitalize this. I think of the two buildings that are kind of kitty corner across the street have done a nice job. So this feels like a good rounding out of another gateway into Vicksburg, and just look forward to seeing more on this one.
Yeah, we are too, and I agree with all those words. And I'd highlight, anyone in this type of trades or environment of economic development knows the serious amount of money we're talking to develop this, even the initial phase, but those continuing phases. And it's interesting to see some of the comments on social media from individuals that I'm unaware of any skin they've ever put in the game. But so, yeah, we try to get these things through the finish line.
All right. If there are no further, well,
I just had one. That property, I think it's been brought up before, is within the DDA boundaries, correct?
It is.
Okay.
And yeah, it's had phase one and phase two environmental testing, and so it's moving forward from there.
great. All right. If there are no further comments or questions, we'll move on to the DDA portion of our agenda here.
Yeah, positive things going on downtown, starting with our Christmas in the Berg event that is December 9th. Full day worth of activities from 12 noon until even after the parade has concluded. And if I see a hand or any comments, but that's Mr. DeBalk gets a lot of credit keeping that committee together and meet. We just met this morning, in fact, about every other Monday at 8:30. So moving forward, some additional highlights on this year is we added a trolley. And that trolley has a narrative with it. So people that will ride this 30-person trolley, it's a 16 to 17 minute tour of the village will accompany a professionally done narrative by Richard Pyatt, spelling a little bit of the history of the village and the location. So now we're doing the test drives to make sure everything's timed out right with the holiday jingles in between. So that's added this year. And we added a better structured tent. Did not, a couple $100 more investment than previous tents, but this will be a lot better setup. 30 by 50 tent that'll house visitors from the North Pole, as well as have ample seating area for those that want to speak to those visitors.
Jim, do we know how many visitors we had last year?
Over 11,000.
11,000? So, I'm assuming that we're going to anticipate more this year, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I'm sure as that committee meets and convenes that that should be taken into consideration. Just you know, it's kind of, we only have room to grow out, right?
Right,
For that.
the reality is we've looked at lengthening the parade route. Human nature, all want to be downtown, so will we get some fringes if we lengthen the parade route? Couple of the safety items the village invested in, 80, you've seen them use, they're the skinnier type pedestrian cones that'll have tape on the corners of Kalamazoo and Prairie and Maine, to make sure we don't get that crowding and worry about one of those fire apparatus. Who can? I know Denny's crew watches the one corner there. So we'll have that out. We'll secure, like we've done the last couple years, the pop-up big lighting where we light up Kalamazoo and Prairie Street and Washington and Maine. And yeah, I agree with you to lengthen it. One thing we are going to do is that we certainly control the pace of the parade will be a lot slower. And we absolutely control that. I'll have communications with the police chief that the pace will be dramatically slowed, and we'll probably be stretching out. We've secured 2 gentlemen to coordinate, you know, as the band leaves, and we'll tell the next float, okay, now you go and keep that distance between to try to help out with those things. It's
Jim,
a good concern to have.
Well, just piggybacking, 11,000 people or more. I mean, have there been any thoughts about doing any sort of local toy drive or anything like that that could, you know, benefit a charity in our region?
I can't say to that specific. I don't know if any conversations, John, or you, in past years, if people.
Family and Children's Services, you know, we adopt a family every year in purchase gifts. I mean, obviously, there's, you know.
Yeah, to bring an on-wrap gift to
Sure.
donate that we could go through South County.
I just think it
Community
creates a great
Service.
story, you know, that the village of Vicksburg, you know, is able
Yeah, I
to
can
raise.
work with South County Community Services and Senior Services, and certainly come up with where a drop box would be, or multiple drop boxes.
Sure.
That's a great idea. And I agree, it's same concept, kind of philosophy we had with highlighting one nonprofit this summer at each event, just the exposure that could get. So, yep.
Forward to new people coming to our groups to add to the next year and the next year to keep building this thing, so.
I applaud
and
Mr.
Nick.
DeBolt. You never miss an opportunity to add to our team. As well, I equally applaud Nick for volunteering. Yes, so that's
Does get, you know, this, since I started doing with this, with the village, with the Christmas in the village, every year we've had, you know, we've tried to make it better every year, and it has. And that's what we want to always just keep building on, because now we have the summers to compete with. And I make it kind of a competition, you know, for myself, because the summers have started so well, and we have a beautiful village now to show off, and every year we just try to make it bigger and better.
Yeah, and you'll see as we propel in kind of yearly event counts from outside the village and that kind of. So a couple expenses that we've had, and we went under a village policy. Websites for our downtown event. Hopefully you've seen it. Hopefully you're all on our texting and email chains and websites. But it's been updated from Berg Days to Christmas in the Berg. We've already prepped. That'll be ready for for the Iceberg Festival, and ultimately the largest 151.5-year municipal celebration in May. And to see traffic on that, and you'll see a lot more social media interaction and boosts there. But the website additions for all 3 events was about $4,000. And it's been an excellent company to work with. We advertised, as we do every year, in the South County News for Christmas in the Berg, and it was a full page ad, about 700. We did purchase an additional $1,000 worth of lights. I have made the lights downtown are staying white. There will be multiple colored light on the Christmas tree. It just efficiency, the ease of DPW staff goes behind that decision. You'll see starting tomorrow, downtown's holiday banners going up, Christmas card lane being put up, which will take the rest of this week. And the Christmas holiday prepping will go into next week. It'll be after Thanksgiving. We'll get back to leaves. We've done two full rounds around the village. Now it's to get downtown ready. We have small shopping coming up that I'll get to here on November 25th and prep people to come to downtown. So just wanted to bring that. Grant program, I'll be sending out tomorrow again to the businesses by email. We have received, I believe, 3 grants so far, but encouraging people to put in grants. We know it'll be part of the communication if we get Big B's across the line to participate in that public benefit of that green space and that. We could be putting those grant with our recommendations at the December 11th Planning Commission meeting, or DDA segment of it, so we can notify those individuals that they can prep up their contractors and try to get those improvements done before June 30th. We'll also update this commission on the status. We've had multiple, about 4 that were awarded last year, and we extended administratively their time period to the end of this year. And some of those, excuse me, are being completed. Pretty cool projects at down on Main Street and that. So we'll update you on all of that going on. But certainly we'll communicate again for a last go around with our DDA businesses that they have this opportunity. Any questions on that? Real,
Let's say not often I get to say agenda item number 10.
that's right.
But,
That's right.
village
I don't want to
manager report.
dissuade anyone, but it has always been an internal goal of mine to have full agendas at the Planning Commission and DDA, which only means the village is moving in the way it should. But entering hour number 3, the reports, real quick, municipal building. Again, if anyone wants to take a tour through it, contact me individually, but we anticipate no later than mid-December staff beginning to move into the building. There will probably be a period of which, and our goal is to get the policing in first. Obviously, all of staff, that's 4 of us, are all equipped to work out of our homes in remote in. So there might be some days that staff is working out of home, or some portion of us on that move. We should be getting furniture next week, and it's exciting times. I always, when I talk about it, highlight that it is a cash endeavor that, as of 2 o'clock today, is still under budget. So we'll see as we move forward. It's just unheard of in municipal work not to bond something like this out. So, which ultimately saves the taxpayers about, at minimum, $1.5 million. So, any questions on the municipal building? Grand opening for it will be in conjunction with our 151st and a half birthday celebration. We anticipate all of the parking being completed and landscaping being completed, and more news on that to come. But it'll be a soft opening. I anticipate Planning Commission's first meeting in that building to be the February meeting. Very wide space. All 9 of you will fit up. I think you'll be very happy with it. We did talk about Christmas in the Burg. I'll conclude with, and none of our downtown businesses know this, but I was out east recently, and saw this and got talking to a very patient business owner, and that seemed to work in this town. So what I did authorize is the use of DDA money, and we're going to announce is a selfie contest with our businesses. And we've purchased the handheld signs that are 11 by 17. They say shop small, hashtag love the Burg, hashtag Village of Vicksburg, and then there'll be a coordinated contest trying to get these businesses to put those selfies up, connected. And if this all works in social media land, a lot of people are going to know about the Village of Vicksburg and their unique, different shops we have down here, with a very emphasis going to be placed on that November 25th. I think it is a Saturday of shop local and fill our downtown and keep our businesses thriving and that. So you will see announcements coming of that in the hardware handed out, hopefully tomorrow morning. So I'm looking forward to see how we can again continue to keep the Village of Vicksburg's positive comments. The last thing I'll conclude with, we know the results are working because of developers and things we have coming in. I told the council, I am blessed to represent the Village of Vicksburg in multiple things, and I try to always communicate the amount that it takes to get us to where we are, including all of you here, the village council. It takes their support, and it's usually been unanimously at the direction we've gone. But this Friday, I've been asked, and it came a little bit ago, to represent the Village of Vicksburg on a panel for the MEDC in Lansing on, and the panel topic is thriving downtowns and how to create that excitement and get people in your downtown. It didn't come from any contact Jim Mallory has had in my experience in public life. It came because people recognized the Village of Vicksburg as an entity and needed someone to speak on its behalf. So that's a credit to all of you. So there we go. Any other questions for me?
Any member, we'll just transition to member comments in general at this time. Any member comments? I will just share, I'm glad to hear the shop local is initiative is happening. We love doing that here and love to see that engagement piece. So good idea on that, Jim. I want to say thank you to the Christmas in the Burg Committee. I wrote down a note to say it's becoming, but I changed it to it has become a really special event in Southwest Michigan. You think about like the Macy's Day Parade and even downtown Kalamazoo, 11,000 people. That means more people are coming to Vicksburg than we have people physically living here. So it's being recognized as a regional destination for people to come to, and I've attended every year for the last several years with my family, and it just gets better and better. So kudos, John. Appreciate your work on that. And Nick, welcome to the committee. All right, we're going to wrap up at 9 o'clock on the dot. I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there. Have a